Hey guys, this week's video is dedicated to the complete recovery of Masha Bas Bat Sheva. I read something very interesting the other day. When you tell somebody I love you, did you ever notice that the I comes before you in that sentence? I mean, think about that for a second. You're trying to express how fond and how much you care about this other person, and yet we make it all about ourselves. I love you. It's not necessarily negative. I mean, it makes sense logically. I mean, we come number one in our own minds, right? If we don't look out for ourselves, who else is going to? Right? If we don't spend time thinking about our own needs and desires, then we're not going to get what we want. In this week's Torah portion, Parsha Kedoshim, we have one of probably the most famous, a very famous verse. To love your fellow as yourself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. In that sentence, your fellow comes before yourself. You might say, well, how am I supposed to do that? I'm supposed to put my own needs, my own desires on the side just to spend time thinking about somebody else? And the answer is at the end of the verse. It kind of gets edited out usually, but the end of the verse says, love your fellow as yourself, I am your God. Adding God to the equation changes everything. It makes all the difference. Because if you believe that you're the sole provider of everything in your life, then you're going to be very limited in how much you can give to others, how much you can think about others. You got to put yourself first. But God is reminding us that everything we have in our life comes from God. All our blessings, physically and emotionally, they all come from God. And if you put your faith that God is in control of everything, then so many fears and insecurities, you can let go of them. You feel so much lighter. You're able to give so much more. You're able to think about others and think about yourself less. Because God's in control. God's taking care of it. To the point where you could even, help out a competitor. You might think that's crazy. Help out a competitor? I mean, that's a whole different level. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe talks about the steps that this can actually happen. You start out thinking really negatively about your competitor. And then that voice, the godly voice inside you says, wait, what are you getting so... He's not taking anything away from you. God's in control. God has enough for everyone. You're not losing anything by your competitor. So you stop hating them so much. Well, if you're not losing anything from them, then why hate them? And then you start thinking, I'm really good at what I do. Maybe I should give some pointers to that fella. Maybe I should help them out. I'm not going to lose anything anyway. God's in control. Now, I know you're thinking come on, you're talking about expectations that are way above and beyond. My grandfather, blessed memory, this was something he used to do. We used to hear all these stories about how he was in the diamond business and he would help set up what you would call competitors. He would make connections, he would vouch for people, give them contacts, and people would say, you're setting up your own competition, what are you doing? And he would always answer, God has enough money for everyone. He's not going to take anything away from me. Whatever God says that I should have, I will have. God's not limited. He had this faith in God. And I remember thinking, well, come on, that's, he's a righteous man. That's above and beyond our expectations. You can't really expect that of us. But flip it the other way. The fact that God does expect it of us shows how much God thinks of us. God thinks, I think you are capable of this. About putting other people first. It's something to live up to. You and your loved ones should have a lovely Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom.